this popped up as a recommended video from Mr. Ballin, and it just like was one of the creepier ones I've seen of his thumbnails.
Oh yeah.
And
What it was like?
Creepy.
Okay.
And there was text on it about like this town has secrets or something like that. And then the title is she tried to hide, or she tried to, what does it say?
Yeah, she tried to hide it,
but that made it worse.
The Circleville letters.
So I don't have a clue what this could be about.
To hide it. Maybe like she tried to hide killing someone.
I don't know.
That's the only thing.
Or like a pregnancy.
Yeah, I was thinking a pregnancy, which is kind of effed, but
a relationship.
Could be anything. Stash
Could
of
be
money.
anything. I'm already on the edge of my seat about this one, so I'm ready to get into it. What do you think?
I'm curious. Yeah,
I'm very curious.
I have no idea what it could be, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
My interest.
Anytime that there's a story with like a small town like cover up or something, I find it to be really interesting.
Is it because you're from a small town?
Yeah, but I know the reality of how that could actually work. Because I've seen it work to some degree.
You're like, I already know.
No, I've seen it work it never lasts. Right. That's the thing. In a small town,
everybody knows
it'll come out. Yeah. But I've seen how even the most vile of situations, given it, involving the right person, can be swept under the rug.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. You got enough money, you got enough friends, you got enough power.
The right parents.
Yeah. Yeah. But they have one of those things.
Some kids in my hometown got away with robbing a arms dealer locally, holding people hostage, brandishing the weapons, assaulting people with deadly weapons.
And then
running away. Without any real severe consequences because they had the right parents. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It all happened in a small town.
It's crazy.
Yes. So who knows? But, Mr. Ballin, masterful storyteller, he's got something creepy to tell us about. It's time to listen.
There is a town in central Ohio called Circleville. It's a population of maybe 10,000 people. It's very modest, blue collar, totally obscure. Unless you maybe have relatives from Circleville or you are from the area, there's a good chance you've never heard of Circleville. Their big claim to fame is their pumpkin show that they've been hosting every year since 1903. But if you're a fan of unsolved mysteries, there's a pretty good chance you've heard of Circleville because it played host to one of the strangest mysteries that played out in American history that started all the way back in 1976 and, depending on your viewpoint, still persists to this day. Before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious, then you come to the right channel because that's the focus of my channel, and I upload 3 to 4 times a week. And so if that's something you're interested in, I would ask you to gently bash the like button and then subscribe to this channel and turn on all post notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly 3 to 4 uploads. All right, let's get into the story. In 1976, Mary Gillespie lived in Circleville, Ohio with her husband, Ron Gillespie, and Mary was a bus driver for the local school. And one day, she came home from work and she found a letter that was addressed specifically to Mary. It had no return address and it was postmarked from Columbus, Ohio. The letter effectively said,
"We know you're having an affair with the superintendent of the school. You must
Damn.
stop and come clean and tell your husband. If you don't, bad things are going to happen to you. We're watching your house. We know you have children."
Now, Mary was obviously frightened. She was scared for her kids. She was scared for herself. She didn't really know how to react.
That'd be terrifying.
Letter, so she just ignored it and hoped that it was...
Was she really banging the superintendent?
Stop. But a week goes by, and she gets another letter. This letter was even more threatening, saying that
if you don't stop this now, we are going to harm you. This is not a joke.
Mary decided to ignore that letter too. But literally the next day, her husband, Ron, woke up one morning and got the mail and found a letter addressed to him. The letter had no return address and was postmarked from Columbus, Ohio, just like the first 2 letters sent to Mary. The letter to Ron said that his wife was having an affair with the superintendent of the school, and that if he didn't confront her and get her to admit the truth and get it to stop, that Ron's life would be in
Grave danger.
Ron is horrified to read this letter. He hadn't suspected anything of his wife. This was very uncharacteristic. And so he went to Mary and he said, "Hey, I got this letter. What is this? I've gotten 2 of these letters and I've just been ignoring it. I didn't know what to do." And she aggressively denied any accusation that she was having an affair. She said, "I'm not doing any of that."
But was
and so
she?
Ron believes his wife and says, "You know what? I don't know what this is, but I believe you. Let's ignore this. This will go away. I don't know what this is, but it'll go away." A week later, Ron receives another letter addressed to him, no return address, postmarked from Columbus, Ohio. This letter said,
"Ron, it's been a week and you haven't done anything. You have to get her to admit the truth. Otherwise, not only are we going to put your life in danger, we're also going to broadcast what she's doing all over town on billboards, on radio, and on TV."
So at this
Go to the
point, Ron
police.
and Mary are scared. Ron is still standing behind his wife. He believes his wife that she has not had an affair, that this is just some horrible hoax. But they're scared. But they don't really want to go to police yet. They kind of want this to just go away. So their first step is, let's tell some people in our inner circle. just to
She's
kind of
doing
put
it.
this out
That's
there
why
and
she
see what
don't
other
want people
think.
investigating it.
So
I
the
bet.
3 people that were closest to Ron and Mary were Ron's sister, Ron's sister's husband, named Paul Freshour, and Paul's
Freshour?
sister.
That's a
So
cool
it's
name.
a little confusing, but those are the players here. And so while Mary and Ron are telling, their inner circle about this anonymous set of letters they've gotten and all the threats involved, Mary starts to think that she might know who's been sending the letters. She has an idea of who it is. Now, we unfortunately don't know who this person is. It's been left out of anything I can find online. But she decides that it's in their best interest to proactively send this person a letter and basically say, "You got to stop, or we're going to pursue legal action." And initially, when they started sending the letters, while it's unclear if they got any sort of response from this person, the letters, the anonymous letters, did stop. But that would all change in August of 1977, when Ron was home one night with the kids, Mary was out, and Ron receives a phone call. He picks up the phone call, and his kids would say that his entire demeanor changed. He went from calm and collected to angry, furious. He's talking to someone, and it's unclear what was said. We don't know exactly what was said or who he was talking to, but when he hung up, he tells his kids that, "I'm going to go confront the person who's been writing these letters." And so Ron grabs his pistol, gets in his pickup truck, and blazes off down the road. It's like he knew exactly where he needed
They
to go.
threatened his life.
Literally minutes later, it was discovered that Ron had died. He crashed into a tree, and he died on impact. Now, nobody else was found at the scene.
What?
The sheriff and the police unit that went in to investigate, it was just Ron in a ditch against a tree. But they found that he had fired 1 shot out of his pistol. They don't know who he was shooting at or what he was shooting at, but he fired a shot before he crashed. The sheriff initially suspected foul play, but the sheriff changes his mind. He says, "You know what? Ron was drunk. Ron was 1.5 times over the legal limit. So he was drunk driving and he crashed." But that didn't make any sense because Ron's family said Ron does not drink. And his kids said he hadn't had anything to drink that day. So at this point, the story
Sheriff
starts getting very bizarre.
is in on
After
it.
Ron's death, hundreds of other letters, anonymous letters, no return address, postmarked from Columbus, Ohio, are sent to residents all over Central Ohio. Not just Circleville, but all over Central Ohio. And the letters
poor woman.
took a turn. Instead of being accusatory of Mary, although there was still some of that, it was the sheriff in Circleville is covering something up.
Yeah.
It was around this time that people started to speculate that perhaps the writer's agenda is not as clear. Initially, it seemed like they were targeting, Mary and Ron. And then when Ron is taken down, they're defending Ron. So following Ron's death, I mean, Mary is scared for her life. She just watched her husband die as a result of this horrible situation. And all these letters are pouring in all over central Ohio with the same kind of nasty language about her and her supposed affair with the superintendent of the school. You know, the letters are insinuating that the sheriff is covering something up with her husband's death. I mean, her kind of dirty laundry is being aired out by this anonymous writer all over central Ohio. And this goes on for years. And so finally in 1983,
that's crazy.
Mary is at a breaking point, and she finally admits that she was having an affair with the superintendent of
I told
she
you
claims that it happened, or it started after the first letters arrived, that it was just a crazy coincidence. But whether or not that's true,
Come
it's kind
on.
of secondary. And she thought that that would stop the letters. That
But
the
it didn't.
first thing that this person wanted was for her to admit this and stop this affair. So she comes out and she admits it and she puts an end to it, thinking that's going to do it. But that didn't do anything. It actually made it worse. So in 1983, after she admits what was going on with her and the superintendent, she's on her bus route driving, the kids to school, and she starts noticing these billboards and signs all over her route condemning her for her actions and saying she's this horrible person. And so she got mad. She went from being kind of a victim and scared to being mad. And so one day, in 1983, she pulls over when she sees one of these signs, and she gets out, she rips it out, and then when she puts it down, she notices there's a box that's a part of this kind of billboard contraption. She kind of looks inside, and there is a loaded gun that has a wire wrapped around the trigger, and the slack's been pulled out of it, like it's literally ready to fire. And had she been standing at a slightly different angle when she pulled down the sign, it would have fired the gun and it would have shot her.
Oh
So
my
she calls
God.
police show up, they do an investigation, and they look at the weapon, and they can tell that someone very poorly tried to etch off the serial numbers on the weapon so that it couldn't be traceable. But they were able to lift the serial number, and they were able to trace it back to its original owner, who was
The wife
none
of
other
the
than Paul
superintendent.
Freshour. And so the police go to Paul, and they're like, "Is this your pistol?" And Paul was totally cooperative when he was approached. He's like, "Yes, I didn't report it, but that gun was stolen from me. I didn't set up that booby trap." The sheriff, who was the same one who investigated
That's her
Ron's
brother-in-law.
Yeah.
he didn't buy it, and so they made him submit to a handwriting test. It apparently totally swayed the jury. They were like, "You know what? Paul's the guy." And he was found guilty and sentenced to 7 to 24 years in jail.
Holy
And
shit.
so Paul goes to jail. And while he's in solitary confinement, more letters are sent out all over central Ohio. And they're all being postmarked out of Columbus, Ohio, even though he is in solitary confinement in Lima, Ohio. But no one wanted to listen to that. Everybody believed that Paul was the guy, even though he's like, "How could I have been writing these letters?" And so for 7 years, these letters are sent all over central Ohio, accusing the sheriff of this cover-up and condemning Mary for what she did. And then when Paul is up for parole, after 7 years, he stands before the parole board and they deny him parole on the grounds that he was sending these letters. Even though he's like, "How could I have been? I've been in solitary confinement most of the time." But they were like, "Too bad, you wrote the letters, see ya." And so he goes back
People
to
just
jail.
want
And it was at this
answers.
point that Paul he gets a letter. This letter was taunting Paul because they apparently had known that he was denied parole based on
Wow.
him being the
So
writer.
fucked.
And instead of it being written in the first person, like I, it was written we. We are keeping you in jail for as long as we can. Basically saying, "Ha, we know you didn't do it, but we are going to keep you in jail for as long as we can." And they even said,
That booby trap is not the only one. It's only a matter of time before somebody else finds one, and then you're going to get blamed for that too.
but following that letter, the letters stop. And so for 3 years, Paul remains in jail until he's up for parole again. And since there haven't been any more letters, and no one found any more booby traps, Paul's granted parole. Paul would maintain his innocence
Doesn't make
all the
any
way until
sense.
2012 when he passed away. So in 1993,
Jeez.
which was the same year that Paul was released from prison, the very popular TV show Unsolved Mysteries decides to cover this story. As soon as they are beginning to do research on it, they receive a letter from an anonymous person with no return address, postmarked from Columbus, Ohio, written in the same style handwriting as the Circleville writer. It said,
If you come to Ohio, you El Sickos will pay.
and so the staff and crew of this show had a decision to make. You know, is this a credible threat or
Do
not?
it.
Do we actually pursue this or not? And they ultimately decided that they had to do it now. And so they go into
Yes.
Ohio and they do their own research.
too
They
juicy.
start questioning people that were involved in this case. And they come across a crucial piece of evidence that more than likely could have potentially kept Paul from going to jail. They discovered that there was another witness that was never brought forward, despite she made herself available. She was not used in the trial and was basically cast aside, but she was also she was a bus driver, and she was on the same route as Mary. And before Mary went to that booby trap sign and ripped it down and almost was shot, this bus driver was ahead of Mary. And when she passed by, she saw there was a yellow, flashy El Camino sports car parked near the sign, and standing outside of the car near the sign was a man who did not match the description of Paul Freshour at all. And when she was interviewed by Unsolved Mysteries in 1993, they were like, really? The sheriff? Like, nobody wanted to talk to you about this? And she's like, yeah, I told them that I'm available and no one wanted to talk to me about it. So Unsolved Mysteries, they air the episode and nothing comes of it. They don't get any more threats. There's nothing. It just gets aired. It's very interesting, and that's that. Really, at this point, you're left with a collection of people, the police included, that fundamentally believe that there is no mystery. It was Paul Freshour. He's the guy that wrote these letters, that set up the booby traps. He went to jail for it, and that's that. But there's another group of people that believe Paul didn't do this, that he went to jail for something he didn't do.
Yeah.
And one of those people is a journalist by the name of Martin Yant. And so Martin, along with a large number of people, believe 3 additional suspects that should have been looked into or should be looked into now that could have been the writer. The first one is the superintendent of the school, the one that Mary was accused and then admitted to having an affair with. The second was a co-worker of Mary's that apparently was infatuated with her. And then the third one was Paul Freshour's wife. So they were married when the Circleville writer drama unfolded, but they ultimately divorced. She left him and she ended up getting together with another guy. So she's got a boyfriend, and the boyfriend matches the description of the guy standing next
like,
to the
why?
El Camino at that
I
sign
don't
in
know.
1983. And one of this guy's relatives owned a yellow El Camino. But nobody ever followed up. The police aren't looking into it. Paul Freshour's the guy, and they're not about to reopen this case. For me, the letters that got sent out all over central Ohio while Paul is in, solitary confinement, to me, that is like the number one thing
Yeah.
that makes me doubt that Paul was the guy. Now,
Yeah.
could he have been involved? Certainly. I think that that's definitely possible. But I think that more than likely what we're looking at here is there was more than one writer. There was a whole group of them. But it's just unclear what their agenda was. And the whole thing is just very confusing. There's lots of people involved, lots of drama. It's like the most epic drama that's unfolded in the most obscure place in the country. But it is what it is, and it's certainly a fascinating mystery, and I would love to hear what your theories are. Was it Paul Freshour? Was it one of the 3 suspects that I just listed off that Martin Yant thinks it was? Or was it something else? I'd love to hear it in the comments. I'll do my best to go through the comments and respond to as many people as I can. If you enjoyed this story, please gently bash the like button and then subscribe to my channel and turn on all post notifications so you don't miss any of my 3 to 4 weekly uploads.
It's weird because it's like there's not enough information.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't know enough now.
Right.
Like, I don't know enough.
I definitely couldn't put a man in jail based on what I heard.
Well, they heard a lot more than what we did.
That's true,
But
but
I think that, given the fact that the gun situation happened is the only real
yeah.
time where I think somebody should go to prison for that. Because, a booby trap that's going to kill somebody could be picked up by anybody.
Threatening to murder children, you should probably get some sort
No,
of...
I mean, I get it, but it's like, we need to find out who did this.
Right.
The booby trap is a huge one.
Yeah, for sure.
To me, that would be the biggest risk. That would be the biggest issue from the whole thing that happened. I find it interesting that this woman's going to go out there and say, yeah, I was having an affair, but not until the letters came out.
Yeah.
It's like, so you got prompted by some crazy motherfucker to go ahead and do it? So you read the letter that accused you of doing it and were like, you know what? That sounds like a swell idea. That doesn't make any sense.
True. Like, somehow her and this man bonded over this traumatic event, so
it's
then
like,
they just...
all of a sudden her husband doesn't exist, you know? Like,
Well, he's probably already dead at that point. I don't know.
no,
I don't
he
know.
gave her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I feel bad. I feel bad for him because...
And totally was just like, okay, you know, like, I believe you. This isn't happening. Man, that's the real tragedy of the whole situation, that guy.
Well, I mean, even if she did that, which is horrible because she cheated on her spouse, I guess the superintendent wasn't married, because that would be the first suspect for me.
Yeah.
You know, she shouldn't have done that, but you know, that doesn't give people the right to, like, ruin her life and put all these billboards and threaten her children. Like,
But her husband died. That's the
Yes.
thing that's really tragic. And I wonder, did the FBI investigate this? Was there any kind of extra stuff? Who knows?
Unsolved Mysteries
Yeah.
continues to be Unsolved Mysteries because it didn't tell us anything.
Right. So what do you guys know about this? Do you have any information that Mr. Ballin didn't share? Maybe you could clear some stuff up for us down in the comment section.
Do you live in Ohio and you know this by heart, or have
Yeah.
family members that are involved in the case?
It would be interesting to hear about. Just let us know down in the comment section. We always appreciate any input that you all have.
Yes.
If you enjoyed this reaction, you could always give us a like, subscribe to the channel. You know, give us some recommendations down in the comment section.
Or on our Discord. We'll have a link to that in the description, as well as Mr. Rollins' original video.
And don't forget, we live stream every Monday and Thursday evening at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, and we would love to see you there. But we appreciate you for watching this reaction, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you guys.